In the land of Penderan, Nikolai is recently widowed and has to find a wife soon because of the country's customs that decree that he has to be married before the age of 26, and he chooses to entrust his parents with this role. Shelby Parker, also in the land of Penderan, finds out that she has caught the eye of the king and queen as a wife for their beloved son. An arranged marriage takes place between the both of them, and while it looks perfect on the outside, Shelby has to deal with a husband who is still very much in love with his first wife, while Nikolai on his end has to learn how to love again after losing love. The Princess is a Christian romance authored by Lori Wick, and with that I'm going to say welcome to Based on Faith, where I talk about books based on my faith in Christ. Today I'm reviewing The Princess. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a Christian romance, fiction of course, authored by Lori Wick. The one thing I like the most about this book, and I typically like about Lori Wick's book, is how her books show Christians living life and experiencing most of what life entails, but with God. So our books are mostly about life with God, and we see this in how Erica, Nikolai's mom, the queen, prayed after Shelby was brought to her attention as a potential wife for Nikolai. She had begun to dwell on the matter and worry when she remembered Jesus' words in Matthew 6, asking who by worrying can add a single hour to their life. And I think moments like this, because I am also just a Christian going through life, both with God. And moments like this just remind me to involve Christ in my life. We also see how our books are about life with God in how Nikolai, on his wedding, they had to ask God for help and strength because of how hard it was for him to marry somebody else, given that he was still in love with his first wife. So the problems that our main characters encountered for Shelby was the fact that she was surrounded by reminders of love while not being loved by her husband. Because, let me set up the situation for y'all. When she got to her room in the palace, she found out that the room was painted in a color she didn't like. It was painted black. I personally would not like for my room to be painted black. But because she didn't want to step on any toes, because she thought the room was previously painted by Nikolai's first wife, Yvette, she chose to just stay there, so that she doesn't change anything Yvette liked. I think that was kind of like a motive behind not changing stuff. And then imagine finding out that it wasn't Yvette that had the room painted black, but rather Nick's grandma, not even his mother, his grandma, who painted it black. And all the other princesses since her haven't changed the color because it wasn't really a room they used. They were mostly sleeping in their husband's room, not in their own separate room. And so she was just like, wow, okay, is that how is that how awkward and weird my marriage is? To the extent that 3 generations, I'm not sure if I can call it 3 or 2 generations, since Yvette wasn't the current generation, but 2.5 generations before me were not sleeping in this room, had no need of this room. That must have hurt. Honestly, that must have seriously hurt for her. And this is just an example of what Shelby had to go through on the norm. And the characters felt really real and practical for me. They did not jump into love with each other, from the moment they saw each other. It wasn't a love at first sight type of thing. It wasn't like a sudden realization of love type of situation, but it was love that they realized that they both had to work towards. Like, they both did not feel anything for each other at first, and they had to intentionally go out of their way in order to work on building a relationship. They at first were not even like, we are going to try to fall in love with each other. They were like, we are going to work on making this marriage work because we're already married to each other. It's an arranged marriage, but we're already married to each other. So let's work on making this marriage work. They both realized that it's something they both had to work towards, but because whenever one person would be working hard towards it and the other person was not working hard towards it, it just did not work out well. So they realized they had to work towards it and talk to each other even during the awkward and embarrassing times. And I'm going to say there were a few embarrassing times, and this brings me to like my favorite part of the book, a kitchen scene that occurred a few weeks after Nikolai and Shelby's marriage that really embarrassed Nikolai in front of the kitchen staff, and rightfully so. And I cackle every time I reread that part. Rightfully so, because it did what it did deserved level of embarrassment he got, in my personal opinion. As for scenes that were like well written, I think the evolution of their relationship, like I mentioned earlier, was well written, particularly for Nikolai, who still had his previous wife in his heart, and Shelby who had to like deal with a third person in a marriage. And I think something Shelby's mom told Nikolai was that he did not have to like completely remove Yvette from his heart, but he just had to make enough room for Shelby in his heart. I don't know if that's practical or impractical advice, because I'm not married. But it seems to make sense to Nikolai. Is there anything I disliked about this book? Not really, not too much. It's a simple Christian romance. Yeah, it's a simple Christian romance. Rounding up my review, it's clean as I would expect a Christian romance novel to be. It's very closed door styles. I would recommend it to most readers, old and young. Also, a slow burn. So if you're not for slow burns, maybe don't pick up this book, but it's a slow burn. And I think that can be that can already be drawn from the way I talked about your relationship and the fact that it wasn't like you fall in love with each other at first sight type of relationship. And I think I'll give this book like maybe a 4 stars out of 5. It wasn't a bad book. It wasn't a mid book, but it's not like awesome. So 4 stars out of 5. It was good. Yeah. All right, and with that, I've come to the end of this review. If you enjoyed this review of The Princess, you might also enjoy my review of Who Brings Forth the Wind by Lori Wick, one of my favorite Christian romances. And just like this book, there's nothing particularly spectacular about it, but I just love that book so much. I don't know why. Maybe one of these days I'll figure out why, but I've reviewed it earlier, so you can check out that review. And if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when I post new videos. And with that, I've come to the end of this book review. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.